The west coast of the United States of America has seen some hard times in the last few months. 17 odd wildfires devastated vast acres of land and affected millions of lives in the months of August and September. Natural disasters and freak weather has wreaked havoc in the country, and California is battling 2 more wildfires at this moment.
Orange flames engulfed acres of forest land across the state of California. Fierce and wind-driven wildfires charred hectares of forest land. 8,000 acres were turned to ash in Ventura County, just north of Los Angeles. Tens of thousands of homes were evacuated as the blaze showed no sign of abating. It also forced the closure of a stretch of Highway 101, a major north-south route.
The challenge also for us is that we are at the beginning of a significant Santa Ana wind event that will last a number of days. Right now we have somewhere between 400 and 500 firefighters on scene, many more on request and will be coming in. Obviously we have another fire in the East County that we are trying to share resources with.
Another fire, dubbed as the Camp Fire, started near Camp Creek Road just north of Sacramento. Paradise City, a town of about 27,000 people, was completely destroyed. Strong winds and dry conditions spread the blaze quickly across several towns in the Sierra foothills. Flames as high as 50 feet were recorded in the town of Paradise. As fire ripped through residential areas and flames leapt from hospitals and schools, roads were clogged with burnt-out vehicles and abandoned police cars. Residents rushed to leave towns as fire engulfed both sides of the road leading out. Smoke turned the daytime sky black in the area as hundreds of firefighters from across the region raced against time to battle the flames, from both the ground and by air. The blaze destroyed everything in its way, injuring a few civilians. Within 6 hours, the blaze had spread to close to 70,000 square kilometers. This week's blaze is one of the 14 currently active in California. In September this year, hundreds of homes were evacuated in Wyoming in the United States. A month before that, in August, California's holy fire was burning out of control in the Cleveland National Forest. The state of California has had an unfortunate history of devastating wildfires. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
The long-awaited Afghanistan Peace Summit has begun in Moscow with delegations from the Afghanistan government and the Taliban in attendance. The summit is the latest attempt to end the conflict in Afghanistan and to map a future for the country after the withdrawal of US troops. Notably, this is the first time that Taliban's political wing, based in the Qatari capital of Doha, is participating in a peace process.
Dear colleagues, all the countries face threats from international terrorism, one of the targets of which is Afghanistan. Terrorists, represented by Islamic State, not without support of external sponsors, are taking steps to turn Afghanistan into the foothold of their expansion into Central Asia and our wider region as a whole. It is the aim of all countries and all active structures in the region to help Afghanistan uproot this terrorist threat.
And we have our correspondent Dan Ashby joining us live from Moscow, the Russian capital, which is the venue for this all-important summit. Dan, thank you so much for taking time out. Russia tried this a few months ago and it didn't work out. This time around, at least, we have a summit to speak of, even if it does come with very low expectations.
Yes, exactly. In some senses, this is unprecedented. We have got the Taliban here in Moscow, the Russian foreign minister around the table, delegations from around the world, and also the High Peace Council, which is, of course, Kabul government-backed, all around a table. Now, That hasn't happened at all at the moment, but they're not in meaty, direct negotiations. It seems to be that just getting them to the table was the achievement in itself. We've had some statements in the last hours saying that the Taliban still don't want to negotiate directly with the government in Afghanistan. They would prefer to talk to the US. They see the Afghan government as a puppet of the US. So very early steps. Moscow is calling this a success, is calling for territorial integrity in Afghanistan, peace, but this is rather symbolic at the moment.
Rather symbolic at the moment. Dan Ashby reporting live from Moscow. Dan, if at all we can expect something from this particular summit, what would it be? Because the Taliban has made it clear that this is basically to debate the current situation, and more importantly about how soon can the US make a clean exit of whatever is left in Afghanistan.
Well, they've already come out today and said that they have agreed to another round of talks. So that's progress in itself. It hasn't just all fallen flat on its face. But the Taliban are still saying that they want to talk to the US. They are, of course, demanding that US troops are removed from Afghanistan. They want their political prisoners, their fighters rather, to be freed from jail and sanctions to be lifted, effectively for the Taliban to become a fully operating political organisation in Afghanistan. And I think that the challenge for Russia is that they have to get the Kabul government around the table, and they have to get the Americans involved as well, because at the moment we have this situation where Moscow is holding these peace talks of sorts. All the while the US envoy is going about his own talks with the Taliban. So to get a substantive agreement, they have to get more people around this table, but at least they haven't been called off altogether. There seems to be at least some pleasantries, some trust, which is crucial in building peace talks, and they are progressing slowly.
And then there was so much talk about will India, won't India be a part of this summit, and India's foreign minister putting all those speculations at rest and saying that yes, India will be a part of it, but a non-official part of it, so to speak. How do you read, sort of India's engagement with this summit?
I think India, like many countries, is playing this very carefully at the moment. As you say, they've been here today in a non-official capacity, sending at least a senior delegation, unlike the Americans who just had a representative from their embassy. So that really wasn't a delegation at all. But there is some nervousness because geopolitics is at play. Russia, of course, is trying to get the momentum for these talks. The Kabul government is pretty angry about that. They say that the reason they haven't come is because they weren't invited to play a leading role in these talks in Moscow, and any peace talks should be led by the people of Afghanistan. So I think India, for that reason, went with a non-official status, as you say, an observation status. But India, America, Russia, China, all of these players will have to be at the table in a much more substantive role if they are going to get a meaningful, lasting agreement.
Dan Ashby, our correspondent, getting us the latest on this historic peace summit for Afghanistan. It's being held in Moscow. Thank you, Dan, for joining us with that latest update. Now we have also joining us for this big story, Javed Faisal, former deputy spokesperson of Afghan CEO, joining us now. Javed Faisal, thank you so much for taking time out to be with us here on WION World is One. How do you view this particular peace summit? Afghanistan's government had pulled out of it a few months ago. Now you have 4 representatives from the Peace Council of Afghanistan's government who are present for the talks in Moscow.
I think something we have to mention as a first thing would be that the mother of all peace processes for Afghanistan is the Kabul peace process. We had 2 of these in Kabul, and then we had a Tashkent summit on the Afghan peace process. However, the Afghan people and the government support the countries and thank the countries who are initiating peace processes for Afghanistan, or to support the peace process in Afghanistan. The Moscow summit is important because it's bringing the countries in the region together. We did have positive signs for peace process from our partners like the US and India, but in the same time we had challenges in the region. Russia, Iran, and Pakistan, those were not very supportive upon peace process. So now having all these countries together and having some involvement from Taliban in the peace process, those are the steps taken forward. But again, the main process should be an upon peace process and upon owned inlet.
Javed Faisal joining us for that big story. Thank you, Javed.